Hello and welcome to a special and extra edition of the Sustainable Futures Report, datelined Monday the 25th of January 2021. I'm Anthony Day. You may remember that back in October I reported on the government's Green Home Grants scheme, which gives homeowners a financial contribution towards improving the energy efficiency of their homes. There's up to £5,000 or in special circumstances £10,000 for insulating floor, walls or roof, installing a low-carbon heating system like a heat pump or a biomass boiler, or putting in double glazing or a draft-proof door. I also spoke to Simon Ayres at that time. He's CEO of Trustmark, the accreditation body which certifies the traders who carry out the work. Recently, there's been feedback from the industry that things are not going well. There's a bit of a backstory. The previous Green Deal scheme was abused and defrauded by lead generation companies pretending to be installers, which signed up customers to crushingly expensive loans. One of these, Home Energy and Lifestyle Management Limited, HELMS, was fined £250,000 for mis-selling, but the company was dissolved. While HELMS was not an installer, the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, BEIS, nevertheless took the decision that the scheme would not work with installers but would deal exclusively with homeowners. Many firms have found it very difficult to get information from BEIS. I've heard from a number of insiders, and I recently spoke to Brian Glendinning, CEO of Engenera, a company which provides solar panels, heat pumps and combined heat and power systems to domestic and commercial clients. It also constructs utility-scale ground-mounted solar farms. With first millions and now billions of pounds allocated to the scheme, it must be a brilliant opportunity for companies such as Engenera to fill their order books for months. How's it going?
Unfortunately, it hasn't been like that at all. The principle of the scheme is wonderful, and it is very much what the industry needed. So the principle of a grant of either £5,000 or £10,000, depending on the client, it is an ideal way to sort of decarbonise and help the advancement of the Green Homes programme. But unfortunately, the scheme itself has been ill-advised, ill-managed, and there's been a lot of criticism actually levied at the Green Homes grant team. But in reality, it's probably more government that's got the problem, because they didn't give enough time, they didn't process the work properly, they didn't allow a company that's done this before to deliver the scheme. And unfortunately, it's left a hell of a lot of companies in a very stressed financial state. I think at the moment we're probably on the Green Homes or the grant side of the business, on the heating side of the business, we've probably laid off 10 staff. Our call centre, we've probably laid off 15 staff in the call centre. And we have 300 jobs that we have looked at. We've got about 55 vouchers through. We've done about 5 installations and we've been paid for nothing so far. So at this point in time, we've had to stop work on the Green Homes grant. We're fortunate because we do a lot of commercial work in the heating and solar market, that we've been able to move on to those and continue trading. But some of the other companies in the industry are really going to struggle with this. And there's been obviously quite an outcry about the quality of the delivery of the scheme in its entirety, which is a real shame, because the principle of what the government are trying to do is really, really good.
What's making things so difficult? The application process for the vouchers, which has to be carried out by the homeowner, seems to be a stumbling block.
It's quite difficult for a standard customer. Some of these people are either very old, have not maybe computer literate, and filling in forms for a lot of them is quite a challenging and daunting task. And that's not for everybody, because obviously there are a lot of people that are quite capable of doing that. But particularly when you get to some of the people that are older or haven't had the opportunity to look at programs of this type before, and then come along with might be in fuel poverty or might be in food poverty. And for those people to try and fill in all the forms and make sure they get everything right. And if they're not sure of a question and they get that bit wrong, it just gets sent straight back. There's no flexibility with the scheme at all in that respect. What we've had to do is we've put admin people in our call center to help clients fill in the forms. In theory, it's not what the plan of the scheme would be, but if you don't have that customer care approach, you would end up with a lot of frustrated customers getting schemes or getting their application forms rejected or sent back to them. And that's not, for me, what the scheme's about. You're trying to help and support people out of fuel poverty or to decarbonise the house. And if you can't help them to make sure that the form is filled in properly in the first place, you're always going to be in with a challenge.
Okay, but assuming the form is filled in correctly, how long before the voucher?
It's supposed to be turned around within 2 to 3 days, but unfortunately we're finding about 2 to 3 weeks.
Yes.
And we still have, if you imagine, we've filled in 300 applications and we've got, as I said, 55, I think, back. But the first ones we filled in at the very beginning of the process, application number 7, we still haven't got that one back yet. So that, and the bizarre thing with that one is it's actually for our business development manager who works in the field. So yes. He's filled his own form in because he is the client. So he knows it's right, and, yes. And he still hasn't got it back.
Eventually, though, the voucher will be issued, the job will be done, and the next stage is getting paid.
The challenge for us isn't so much the client point of view, it's working out when you're going to get paid from the Green Homes Grant. And the projects we've installed so far, we haven't been paid.
So can you talk to the people at the Green Homes Grant Scheme about it?
Yes, we're in contact with the organisation, but you do get passed from pillar to post. It's not clear at all. It's very difficult to get paid, and the staff are finding it very frustrating to work with the guys at the moment. And to be fair to some of the Green Homes Grant people, I don't think they know what's going on too much either, to be fair. So it's very ambiguous as to how we're supposed to get paid and when we're going to get paid. Although it shouldn't be, because it's all in black and white. It's not the what's written, what the written word is, and what actually is happening is completely different, unfortunately.
And some of the communication sent out by the government's contractor has not been helpful, has it?
There was an email went out to, I think, 10,000 customers on Christmas Eve, telling them that, which was a generically sent out email telling the customers that all of the systems they've been quoted for were all too expensive. I think that email wasn't even generated in the UK, so I fail to see how, without even looking at a system, they can decide what is a right price and what's a technically correct offering to the customer. So that created a number of issues right over the Christmas period, where our staff were getting calls from people, some in floods of tears, thinking I'm going to get my new boiler before Christmas or over the Christmas period, to not getting one at all, for then thinking that they were being duped because they were told by a government body that the price they were paying was too much. But the system price we're putting in is exactly the same that we're charging as many other installers are charging. And that's created a massive issue for both the clients and our staff in general.
And the grant scheme has not generated new business.
When the government announced the Green Homes Grant, obviously people didn't want to pay for the systems when they were going to get a £5,000 or a £10,000 grant. So it actually killed the marketplace in July when they announced it. And then it started to pick up again in September when the scheme started. But the way the scheme has been developed to date, unfortunately, we've spent about £250,000 on work to date and not had a penny back. Unless you've got guidance from above and some wherewithal of how you're going to deliver a scheme in a professional and a structured manner that allows the client to get the right system installed for them and the installer to make money and get paid, it isn't going to work. And at this point in time, there's not an installer in the country, I would say, that would sell you anything different than it's not working.
Well, surely something must be done.
Very much so. And you know, I've worked on a number of government schemes over the last 25, 30 years. And I would say without fear of contradiction, this is probably the worst scheme we've ever had. The Green Home scheme, as much as a loan, wasn't a great scheme compared to the schemes before that. But this one, unfortunately, because of how it's been structured, is actually killing the marketplace and killing the installer network, and isn't helping the customers at all. I mean, this is a time where we would class as a heat season through the winter, where we should be in full production, and clients will be really struggling at the moment, particularly the ones that haven't got any heating systems in a house or it's broken, and we couldn't go and install for them with any confidence of getting paid. We're really happy to stop what we're doing within the Green Homes grant scheme and really focus our business on other areas. But I've had time this week put aside to speak to our MPs because it's a desperate situation.
A desperate situation indeed. Brian mentioned the Christmas Eve letter, which he said wasn't generated in the UK. The background to that is that the scheme is run by an American company. The original budget for the scheme was £250 million, and it was to be administered by Trustmark, the organisation set up to accredit the installers. However, the government decided that the budget would be increased to £2 billion and that this was too much for Trustmark to be responsible for. Instead, it awarded a multi-million-pound management contract to an American organisation called ICF. Companies in this industry have taken on extra staff in anticipation of extra demand which has not appeared. They have also spent thousands of pounds on registration with Trustmark, which was necessary for them to be accredited with the scheme. They are therefore now very unhappy to find that the government, in order to try and speed things up, has relaxed this condition so that their competitors who didn't invest in accreditation can now undertake the work. Clearly, this must have implications for the quality of the work. Manufacturers, which have geared up for anticipated demand for the materials for creating energy-efficient homes, have found themselves having to mothball plant and lay off workers. What was intended to be a job-creating scheme now seems to be destroying jobs. Criticism has been levelled at Secretary of State Alok Sharma, who has now been moved out of BEIS to take full-time responsibility for COP26, the International Climate Conference, to be hosted by the UK next November. He was succeeded on the 11th of January by Kwasi Kwarteng, who had previously been the minister directly responsible for delivering the Green Homes grant scheme. In his new role, Mr Kwarteng will have many other issues to deal with, including the national vaccination rollout. The new minister responsible for the scheme, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, has yet to make her mark. Action cannot come too soon. Many thanks to Brian Glendinning, CEO of Engenera Renewables Group. I'll follow this story and keep you informed. That's it for this special edition of the Sustainable Futures Report. There'll be another one on Friday, as usual. Thanks for listening, and thanks in particular to all my patrons who support the Sustainable Futures Report. If you'd like to be a patron for as little as £1, $1, or €1 per month, you'd be more than welcome. Just go along to patreon.com/SFR. That's patreon.com/SFR. That was the Sustainable Futures Report. I'm Anthony Day. Until next time.